Okay, time for a new video, and whether you are somebody new to my channel or you are returning to my channel to watch this video, it is greatly appreciated. As always, I'm filming this in one go, therefore I apologise in advance if I stumble over my words going forwards, and indeed if the quality of this video is fairly poor as well. If there's any lag, anything like that at all, sadly it can't be helped, and hopefully it's not too much of an issue for you. This is yet another Eurovision related video here on my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about something that I honestly didn't think I would address here on my channel, but it's Eurovision related, so I will be talking about it. As I'm sure all Eurovision fans are very much aware, there is a movie coming out, ladies and gentlemen, on Netflix just a few days from the time of recording this video. Right now it's the 15th of June, a Monday, and this film is being released to Netflix on June the 26th. It's 123 minutes long, and it's called Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't know a great deal about this film. I only know what I've read in this magazine, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. I've seen the trailer, I know a few other bits and pieces. Am I going to watch this film? Probably at some point. I don't have a Netflix account for starters, so it's going to be a while. But also, part of me is a little bit apprehensive, purely because, is this going to be a serious film? Certainly not, based on what I've seen. Is this going to be a film that mocks the contest? Possibly, in places, which I don't think is the right way to go. I personally would have preferred a major documentary. I don't know about you. I know that we have had documentaries, in the past. I think Cannes did one in Tel Aviv last year. But in terms of a really big documentary that's released in cinemas, not that they're open at the moment in most places, but anyway, I would have preferred something like that. I don't know about you, feel free to let me know in the comments. But Netflix have jumped on the bandwagon, and if anything, this is going to boost the profile of the contest in America, who might just laugh at the contest rather than actually appreciate the fact that it's the world's biggest live entertainment event. Anyway, what I have in front of me here is that David Dobkin is the director, and he's 50 years of age. He's done movies such as Shanghai Nights, Wedding Crashers, Fred Claus, and King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Suffice to say that I think most of his movies have had mixed responses from critics. He's also done music videos for the likes of Elton John and Maroon 5. He did the music video for Sugar by Maroon 5. And some of their more recent material. Interesting. I didn't know that until clicking on this page. Will Ferrell, we all know as a comedian, big star, he's in this. Rachel McAdams, the former James Bond, Pierce Brosnan, Dan Stevens, Demi Lovato, and the British commentator Graham Norton are all involved in this project, along with a huge bunch of Icelandic-born actors, including Olafur Darri Olafsson, Björn Hlynur Haraldsson, Nina Dögg Philippusdottir, and Johannes Haukur Johannesson. That's my best pronunciation there, and I'm sure many others too. There's going to be a soundtrack which might end up being the most interesting element of the film. One song's been released, I haven't listened to it, might do that in a video. It's Volcano Man, performed by Will Ferrell and Molly Sandén, who's tried to represent Sweden a bunch of times and has been involved in the junior contest, has she not, at one point in the past. Anyway, should also say, just before I get into the main element of this video, that earlier today, at the time of recording this video, the dates for the 2021 contest in Rotterdam were announced, the 18th, 20th and 22nd of May, and apparently the stage design is going to stay the same as well. Just thought I'd get that out of the way. This article that I'm about to take a look at then, and I think I'm going to read the whole thing aloud. It's in issue 299 of Total Film magazine. This is it. It's back to front, but you can see Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams there. The article is called Blaze of Glory, and it's written by Jamie Graham. And the reason I'm going to read this aloud is purely because I think it will explain this movie better than I ever could just normally. So all of these words are Jamie Graham's. All his opinions are his own. Just want to make that clear. And yes, I think I'll read it aloud and give you my thoughts on this. I've already read it, but I'm going to read it aloud now on camera. So here we go. Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams are Fire Saga, representing Iceland at Eurovision in the aptly titled Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Total Film speaks to the on-song stars and director David Dobkin to find out why this gloriously camp comedy is exactly what we need right now. I have an issue with the word camp. I don't know why, I've just never really liked it. I mean, camp things I'm fine with. Fine, go ahead. But that just immediately suggests to me that this is going to be a very tongue-in-cheek, almost silly movie. I'm not expecting great reviews for this, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, this is the article. Well, it's kind of a funny story, says Will Ferrell, explaining how he first happened upon the Eurovision Song Contest. My wife has family in Sweden. Our first trip there would have been the spring of '99, and we were out in the countryside at their little summer cabin, and her cousin said, "So shall we sit down and watch Eurovision?" I was like, yeah, I guess, what's that? I watched mesmerised for the entire 3 hours. Ironically, that year a Swede won, Charlotte Nilsson. I was just blown away by the spectacle, the camp. Everything you guys are used to, we didn't have anything like that in America. I literally went, that would make a great movie. I have to be honest and say that I am surprised there hasn't been a movie about Eurovision until now. We have had a documentary about Junior Eurovision called Smells Like Teen Spirit. I think it was called that, or Sounds Like Teen Spirit. Sorry, I can't remember what it was called. But anyway, it was about Junior Eurovision many years ago, and I did see that, and that wasn't too bad. But we haven't had anything genuinely serious about the grown-up contest. Anyway, fast forward 16 years, and Ferrell had done exactly zilch about making that great movie happen. Partly it was because not many people in America know of the Eurovision Song Contest. Partly it's because Ferrell's been an extraordinarily busy bee, with Zoolander, Anchorman the Legend of Ron Burgundy and Wedding Crashers turning him into a major star in the early noughties and nary a pause for breath since. And partly it's because he was convinced that someone else would make a Eurovision movie first. How could they not? Then around 4 or 5 years ago I was like, God, no one's making a Eurovision movie, chuckles Ferrell, so we started the process. That process involved Ferrell attending the final of the contest in 2017, where he bathed in the spectacle firsthand and talked to the organisers, the European Broadcasting Union, about the possibility of making a movie. Where there's a will, there's a way. The EBU, knowing that Ferrell was a genuine fan, consented, and he wrote a script with fellow Saturday Night Live scribbler Andrew Steele. Saturday Night Live is not that popular in Europe, but it's a very long-running, highly successful sketch show in the US, who also penned Ferrell star as the Ladies' Man and Casa de Mi Padre. What they came up with was every bit as bonkers and big-hearted as you'd expect. Ferrell plays Lars, which is not the most Icelandic name, I guess. Certainly it's not one that pops into my head, but anyway, the son of a gruff fisherman, played by Pierce Brosnan, living in Husavik, Iceland, nurtures a lifelong dream of winning the Eurovision Song Contest. But his band, Fire Saga, which consists of himself and his childhood pal Sigrid, played by Rachel McAdams, is a joke even in his tiny hometown. Just how Fire Saga come to represent Iceland on the international stage, going head-to-head with the bare-chested, bouffant-astic Russian favourite Alexander Lemtov, played by Dan Stevens, has to be seen to be believed, and the absurdist streak gets broader from there. I'm not too sure about absurdist. Again, that makes the whole thing seem like it's a bit of a joke. But anyway, these are not my words. They are the words of Jamie Graham. I finished the script and my first reaction was, I love it, I want to do it, but we have to change the title, laughs David Dobkin, who began his directorial career making 2-pack videos, and here reunites with Ferrell and McAdams 15 years on from Wedding Crashers. I didn't know Eurovision was a real thing. Will was confused and said, well, that's what it's called. So I went on the internet and it was like discovering the dark net. Oh my god, I inundated myself and fell in love with the contest. By this point, Netflix was on board, though the Californian streaming giant also needed a crash course in all things Eurovision. Sure, the contest had aired 64 years running since launching in 1956, attracting an audience of between 100 and 600 million, but Ferrell needed to sell his distributors on the sheer scale of the thing. The answer was a trip to the finals in Tel Aviv in May 2019. A great shame, this, because in terms of scale, the Tel Aviv contest last year was actually fairly stripped back. Lisbon was much grander. I think they would have benefited from looking at that one rather than last year. But anyway, We all went to last year's show and they were blown away by the spectacle, says Ferrell, so we had to make sure the movie felt big. Indeed. It was, in fact, this very trip to Tel Aviv that allowed the movie to capture the necessary scale. There's nothing in America where you have 20,000 people to light, says Dobkin. I was like, this is kind of crazy. So I went with a real crew to shoot Tel Aviv. 5 cameras. They let me get on stage right before the show. Now, I've looked up some information about this, and apparently it was all fairly hush-hush. But before the grand final last year, they actually shot some of this film with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams actually on stage. There's a picture here that I'll try and show you in a moment. Very interesting. So at least they're getting it fairly accurate in that respect. So well done. We talked to the crowd and we played our songs. We were able to run our biggest songs with our lights actually running in the real Tel Aviv show. Months later, arguably, Will Ferrell, perhaps more interesting to see than Madonna, who was the actual interval. But anyway, months later in Leavesden Studios, that's down south, Dobkin's crew recreated the Tel Aviv stage for the film's performers to sing and strut upon, and again ran their carefully choreographed light show, which allowed for seamless cutaways to the 20,000-strong audience. As absurd as the movie is, authenticity was the key word, and the production also packed 1,000 extras into Leavesden for the stars to perform to. What will be interesting is if in this film, that one fan that pops up every damn year, if he surfaces, I will just be like, I am not surprised. Because every single year he's there in the crowd and the camera always focuses on him. Unbelievable. I think you'll know who I'm on about. Anyway, it was nerve-wracking. He was the one singing along to Toy, by the way, in Lisbon. It was nerve-wracking, winces McAdams, who, like Ferrell, does a lot of her own on-stage vocals. I sang during theatre, growing up and in the high school choir, but never anything on this scale. But I got to work with an amazing singing coach, Eric Vetro, who works with Ariana Grande. For Ferrell, all of this veracity led to surprising results. When we got to perform Husavik, the last song, I couldn't stop from welling up, he says. It's such a sweet song, and with the staging and the lights and the smoke. He laughs. David kept going, are you okay? I was like, no, I'm getting strangely emotional. Ferrell's emotions were good news for all, because if Eurovision Song Contest The Story of Fire Saga was to work, it had to be as genuine as his tears. And that didn't just mean the grand scale of the staging, or the affectionate nods to the country's rich history. The contest's rich history. Apologies. I knew I couldn't make the movie a parody, because the show is already a parody. Bit of a dodgy thing to say, maybe. And there are so many people that love this contest, very true, so I wanted to embrace it, says Dobkin. The Coen brothers' Fargo was the touch point, a fun film full of protagonists talking in a funny way, but never looks down on its characters. Therefore, the songs are spot on. Savan Kotecha, who's written tunes for Katy Perry, Britney Spears, and One Direction, wrote several Europop belters, including Fire Saga's anthem, Double Trouble, which is also the name of a real junior Eurovision song from Malta several years ago, but anyway. And so are the costumes, hair, makeup, sets, and choreography. I was always asking for a little bit more sparkle, a little bit more volume to the hair, laughs McAdams, who was game for anything, and eager that Ferrell shouldn't hog all the best sight gags in his knitwear, onesies, puffer jacket, and green checkered tracksuit. Proof? Well, let's just leave this quote here. It was nice to have the camel toe moment. Lovely. Ferrell, for his part, is eager to talk about one of Eurovision's biggest set pieces, a true gobsmacker involving a giant hamster wheel. I wonder what he could be on about there. That was a prime example of how we had to make sure the staging was up to the Eurovision standards, whether it's cheeky craziness or massive pyrotechnics, he grins. But this is the thing, Eurovision's not all that. Did you see Duncan Lawrence? He didn't have anything like that. In Copenhagen 2014, there was this guy in a hamster wheel behind the singer, that was Maria Yaremchuk for Ukraine, of course, just running. That image never left us, and for our song Double Trouble, we kept thinking we need to have something big, like the hamster wheel. Then we said, what if we just do the hamster wheel? That's an homage. It was a huge deal. Trust me, the prop department didn't let me hear the end of it, that they'd constructed that thing with, I don't know, 87 different weld points. McAdams put in months of work for Eurovision, training with an Icelandic dialect coach, learning the guitar and piano, and listening to a lot of Björk and sensory music, you know, Icelandic girls stroking hairbrushes. She feels it was worth it, pointing out it's tough to find great comedy that's really balanced. I liked the heart of this film, but that it was also really absurd. That word again doesn't bode well. It's one of Ferrell's funniest for years, but two big questions still remain. Will Americans get it? Probably not, but they'll laugh their heads off probably at the absurdity of it all. And will the big laughs suffer on the small screen for Netflix's plan to release into theatres before streaming were decimated by COVID-19? The fascinating thing with the testing we did in the States is the audience didn't know Eurovision was a real thing, and it didn't matter, shrugs Ferrell. When they found out it was based on a real thing, they were like, that's cool, but they're used to seeing singing contests, American Idol, The Voice. There are versions like that in Europe, admittedly, and they got wrapped up in the spectacle of it and the story. Dobkin sighs. We ran 3 tests with 300 plus people in a theatre, and the movie runs like wildfire. So I'm not going to lie to you, I have a sadness that it won't be seen that way. But we can't do that now, it'll play differently, but it's an incredibly entertaining film. There's no question that watching a comedy with a big group of people is the ultimate, agrees Ferrell, but we're in such extraordinary circumstances. Hopefully, knock on wood, this movie could be the surrogate this year for the contest. They did a modified version of the show, but at the same time this will be a fun departure. I think people are really looking for anything new in the comedy stakes coming into their living room. And I think this movie, especially with the tone, there's a real sweetness, it's going to transcend. I keep remembering why the Eurovision Song Contest started in the first place, Dobkin finishes. The countries wanted to come together without the shadow of World War II and do something positive and life-affirming and make them feel united. That's so meaningful in the world right now. That's it. The words of Jamie Graham, Will Ferrell, Rachel McAdams and David Dobkin there about the Netflix upcoming feature film, shall we say, Eurovision Song Contest, the Story of Fire Saga. So certainly there'll be a lot of attention in Iceland about this, I'm sure, and it just so happens that if this year's contest had gone ahead, Iceland might well have won it, so it could have been a really golden year for Iceland indeed. But I just feel as though this is going to be a film that mocks the contest, rather than genuinely revels in the brilliance of it and the technicalities of it and how loved the show is. I really don't know. I've seen a lot of people apprehensive about it as well on other social media. But let me know your thoughts. Will you be watching this on the 26th of June? Is it the 26th of June? Yes, it is. So that's just over a week away or something like that. Yeah, feel free to let me know what you think. I'm sure I will see it at some point. So just in terms of the images here, I'm interested to know Demi Lovato's role. You might not be able to see this terribly well, but that's Dan Stevens as the Russian act, and to be fair, it does genuinely look like something Russia would probably send to the contest. Then we have this, and you can tell by watching the trailer, by the way, that they really did shoot this in Tel Aviv. That's Rachel McAdams. I think that's Will Ferrell on the piano in the back. Looks to be some sort of ethereal ballad. And then I'm assuming that this bit down here is part of the press conference, but in the press conferences at Eurovision, you don't really get the flags of all nations in the background. And there seems to be the flag, it looks to be the flag of the Dominican Republic in the background here, which either that's a massive error or something's going on there that I'm not aware of. But there's a flag there that looks like the flag of the Dominican Republic. Anyway, the trailer, I mean, it looked alright. It seemed as though there were going to be a few chuckles and laughs and things like that. But otherwise, it just seemed like they were making it for the hell of it. And I don't know. I think, if anything, they're making it to showcase the contest in America. But Americans need to watch the real thing. And then they'll understand what it's all about, probably. Anyway, Will Ferrell and Andrew Steele wrote the script. The music is by an Icelandic individual, Atli Örvarsson. There are some very good Icelandic composers out there. The person who did Joker was Icelandic, won an Oscar for it. So yeah, fantastic. Rachel McAdams plays Sigrid Eriksdottir. Pierce Brosnan plays Erik Eriksson. Interesting, S-O-N-G. At the end. Dan Stevens, Alexander Lemtov, Demi Lovato's Katiana, Olafur Dario Olafsson plays Niels Brongus, and Johannes Haukur Johannesson plays Johans, Demi Lovato's Katiana, I think I said that, Graham Norton's himself, What a surprise that is. But yes, that's it. Don't really have anything else to say about it. Could have reacted to the trailer, but I've already seen it. Could have reacted to the song, Volcano Man, but I might do that at another time, if you're interested in that. Yes, I'm glad we're getting a film, but maybe it's the film that people didn't really want or expect. I don't know. I know Will Ferrell's a big fan. He was part of the Icelandic replacement show for this year's contest. He actually read out some of the points, I believe. So he is a genuine fan, no doubt about it. But I honestly would have preferred a massive, in-depth, genuinely great documentary to be released instead, rather than this tongue-in-cheek, playful, maybe not actually that serious or funny film. Anyway, that is it now. Do let me know what you think, and apologies if the quality of this video wasn't that great, but that's it. My thoughts, or rather Jamie Graham's thoughts, on Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. I know that it was waffly, but I did want to read that article aloud, purely because it explains things so much better than I ever could. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with another Eurovision-related video sometime soon. Do let me know as well if you have plans to attend Eurovision 2021. Do you think it will go ahead with a crowd, or do you think this pandemic will still be ongoing? I'm genuinely interested to know. Until next time, take care and bye for now.